When we talk about dumping a narcissist, we're not talking about something simple like just walking away physically so that you no longer see the person, you're out of his space, he or she is out of your space. We're talking about something much more deeper than that because once you experience the traumatic episodes that you encounter when you go through sometimes months or years with a narcissist, that is embedded in your mind. So, how do you get this stuff out of your head? I'm not sure that you ever can completely because, well, first of all, you need those memories because they're learning experiences. You need those to remind you don't do that again. Never get yourself in that mess again if conceivably possible. But still, there is the narcissist embedded in your mind and you're ruminating. And you've got these things going over and over in your head. What could you have done? What should you have done? And so forth. So what we want to do is we want to dump the narcissist, not just physically, but we want to dump them in our mind. Not forget them, but we want to dump their influence on our mind. So here are my suggestions. After nearly 70 years of life, I've learned a thing or two. I have experienced some very unhappy episodes with narcissists, and I'm just sharing with you some of those things that I have learned from life's laboratory. Number one is focus on those red flags. When you first met the narcissist, that he or she was very accommodating, very kind, very considerate, somebody who loved bomb you and you were just happy to be around them. But then there was some little red flag and you missed it, but you didn't think anything of it because, well, that's true of just about everybody, right? Nobody's perfect. Then there was another red flag and they became more frequent and they became more severe. So I'm thinking back in my experiences with narcissists, some of those early red flags were excusable to miss, but as they became more and more common, then the excuses were more my fault than anything else because, well, I'm just too gullible, I'm just too naive. All right, so how do I get the narcissist out of my head? How do I dump the narcissist? Well, I focus on those red flags that I missed. First of all, with a good excuse. But then as things progress, now, I should have caught those things. I should have said, this is a serious problem. This is an individual who has no concern for me or for anyone else other than him or herself. So focusing on those red flags is one way to get the narcissist out of your mind. And as we mentioned earlier, it's also a good way to remind yourself to look out for red flags for people in the future. Got to keep in mind that narcissists are not easily recognizable by design. In fact, if they're gifted at grifting, then one of their fortes, one of their strong points is their ability to disguise themselves to fool you. Number two is be your own best friend. Nothing wrong with having friends, nothing wrong with having close, good friends, nothing wrong with having a best friend, but what we're talking about is dependency. When the narcissist came into your life, it is because, well, he or she probably sensed that you were looking for a little bit of security, somebody who would give you someone to lean on, a shoulder to cry on, or maybe a friend, somebody to hang out with. They pick up on that, and so they attach themselves to you, and all is well. Everything is going great at the very beginning, but the reason that you are dependent and you have this codependent relationship, but the reason you are dependent is because, well, you need that companionship. Or you thought you did. You needed that friendship. So apparently there was a void in your life. There's something missing, and you needed that companionship, somebody that kind of augment and reaffirm who you are. And you found it in a narcissist of all people. And again, you didn't know. How could you know? But what if we could eliminate that void? That space in our lives where we just feel alone? Well, one way to do that, I think, is to learn to be self-reliant. And when I say self-reliant, I don't just mean hold down a job and, earn money to buy food and gas, pay the rent. I'm talking about emotional self-reliance as well. Can you be content when you are all alone? It's not easy because humans are social creatures. You know that. Everyone knows that. we are at our very best when we are with our family, when we are with our tribe, when we are with a community group. That's when we thrive. But that's not always possible. So when it's not possible, we look to shore that up. That's where the narcissist comes in. But if we shore it up sufficiently with ourselves, that's not the ideal. But if we are perfectly content being by ourselves, totally self-confident, well, maybe not totally, but primarily self-confident, then the narcissist really doesn't have room to wedge into our lives. So one way to dump the narcissist, get him out of our heads, get him out of our lives, is to understand we don't need this person. Come to think of it, we don't need anybody. It's okay to have, well, it's good to have other people in your life, to have a social life. Nothing wrong with that. But you need to, I think we need to put ourselves in a position emotionally where if it's taken away, think of yourself as kind of an emotional survivalist. If you lose everything, zombie apocalypse, are you self-reliant emotionally? Are you self-reliant psychologically? Are you self-reliant mentally? We need to get ourselves in a position where if everything falls apart, yeah, we can still make it. Number 3 is, we did a whole video on this, but number 3 is simply make yourself toxic to the narcissist. All right, so maybe the narcissist is still hanging around in the background. You've got the barrier built up, you've got the a hedge of protection built around you. You got your boundaries in place, but the narcissist is lurking around the outside of the boundary, still trying to get inside. He or she does this, obviously, through a smear campaign, still trying to get at you so he or she can get some supply from you. What happens if you are so toxic that they just don't want to put up with you anymore? Well, if you could put yourself in that position where there is no supply to be had, and if they can get supply back from you, it's toxic. So now the narcissist is thinking, I think I'll just leave this guy alone. Now, they may not think that literally, but they get the impression, gotta leave this guy alone because, well, we're not fighting with a narcissist. We're going to talk about that in just a second. We're not fighting with a narcissist, but we are absolving ourselves of any connection so that there is no supply there to have. He or she going to try to get it anyhow. So one of the ways you can do this is to make sure the people understand the truth. Now, we talk about this all the time, but the number one enemy of a narcissist is reality, is the truth, because they live in a fantasy world. How many times have I said that in past videos? Narcissists make up these fantasy stories about themselves. Some are more extreme than others. Some are just inside their heads, but they imagine themselves being somebody they're not. Sometimes they see themselves as war heroes and present themselves as such. I've seen narcissists present themselves as secret agents for the FBI, which is, there's like an ounce of truth. Maybe less than an ounce of truth in that. At some point, they may have encountered an FBI agent and gave them information. Somewhere, 10, 20 years ago in their criminal past, that in their mind makes them a full-fledged FBI agent. At least that's the way they present themselves. In other words, they live in a fantasy world. So what you want to do is you want to make yourself toxic to that fantasy world. The way you do that is tell the truth. No, you're not an FBI agent. You're not a war hero. You are none of those things you present to be. There is no conspiracy theory. Nobody's out to get you. You're not a hero standing up against, the Illuminati or whatever. That's not true. Well, what is true? What is true is you're a grifter. Talking to the narcissist, what if the person truly is a grifter? What you are is a thief, you're a liar, you're a scam artist, you're not necessarily a good artist, but you're a scamster at least. That is the truth. That strips away the mask. That destroys the very essence of the being of a narcissist, which is to take supply from other people by pretending to be somebody they are not. So you rip the mask off, and narcissists, they can't handle that because it's toxic. Some things not to do. Number 4 is don't try to win because, when you're contending with a narcissist, it's all about contention. Narcissists get supply from fighting. And you say, well, I'm going to fight with this guy and I'm going to outmaneuver him or her. I'm going to be stronger. They don't care. You know, the narcissist, the fight is the end game. It's not who wins and who loses. It's the fact that they were able to draw you into conflict, into an argument, into a dispute, whatever. The fact that they drew you in means they are controlling you. They don't care who wins the fight because the fight is already won by virtue of the fact that you're fighting. They feel like they're in control. That is the supply they need. They boost their ego, which is what supply is, inflating somebody's ego. So don't try to win. You know, well, don't even try to fight. Number 5 is don't try to teach them a lesson. Talked about this in a video a couple days ago, but we have this thing that we're going to take them down a notch or two. You know, we're going to show them who they really are. We're going to teach them a lesson they will never forget. No, you're not. I know narcissists who are now in their late 60s, early 70s, my age. People have been teaching them lessons their entire lives. I mean, over and over and over again. And they have not learned, because that is the essence of being a psychopath. That is the essence of being a narcissist. They don't learn because they can't learn. They're perfectly content to have you sue them, take them to court, and teach them a lesson. If you win, they don't care. If you win a judgment, they don't care. They just don't pay it. The fact that it's just like fighting. The fact that they lured you into having that contention in court so that you could teach them a lesson, they won because they are manipulating you. Don't bother getting in their face screaming at them, because they want you, believe it or not, they actually want you to do that. That makes them feel good. It's kind of like scratching their back. It feels good. Get in my face and yell some more, because every time you do that, the narcissist is thinking, maybe even subconsciously, but he or she is thinking, I'm controlling this person because I am making them get in my face. So don't try to teach them a lesson. That is one of the ways that, you just expunge yourself from the narcissist, that you get them out of your life once and for all. You just dump them. Just, out they go. Number 6, and this one I'm going to just touch on because it's just too obvious. But when conceivably possible, and it's not always, but when conceivably possible, just do not communicate with these people. I mean, don't talk to them, period. I know you're in the workplace and you got to communicate. And you can't just quit your job because you go to another job and guess what? There's another narcissist. So quitting your job's not going to work, and you don't want to do that anyhow. If it's a family member, you can't just leave your family. I can't think of any situation where that would work. Maybe it can, but sometimes you got to communicate, but you can minimize your communication. So we need to just not communicate with a narcissist whenever possible, and when we have to, it should be minimal, because every word you say, everything you do, every time you look at their face, every time you're in their presence, that is an opportunity for the narcissist to get supply out of you, and he or she knows it, and they take advantage of it. So the way to dump a narcissist is, when possible, just, gray rock. Do not communicate with these people ever, if that's possible. Do you see those 2 rectangles on the screen? If you like what you heard, let's keep on talking. If you want to, just click one of those 2 rectangles and our conversation will go on. If not, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see y'all next time.